back. We're in part 2 of our conversation with Mel Kypri, Suicide, the Hidden Epidemic. Mel, that was really brave of you to share. How did that feel just to share that here with people?
Well, I'm surprised I didn't cry, so I'm really happy that I was able to do that without crying. But no, it was good, really good. Yeah, I was really happy to share. But everyone had smiles on their faces and all that too, so that helped. Yeah.
Is that the first time you've shared it publicly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm. One of the things you were talking about is clinical and non-clinical. Can you please explain the difference?
Well, clinical is when you go to a hospital and you're dealing with nurses and doctors, and everything's covered. You know, insurances and all that are all in place and all that. With non-clinical, it's a space where you've got people that have got lived experience that are doing that are there looking after you. So the peer support people will have done some training that we're providing, but they'll all be people that have had some sort of experience with suicide, whether it's themselves or family member or good friend or something that they've been through trauma with that. Because they believe now, through research, that, and I'm talking about the government knows now through research, that people that are going through these things, like I went through, and lots of other mental health issues, want to talk to someone that has had lived experience, because they feel that that person understands what they're saying. And that was the same with me. I found it hard to talk to my friends that didn't, because sometimes people will say to you, oh, you just have to get over it. Yeah. I mean, my goodness. And there's so many different types of ways that's so frustrating. Things like, oh, you know, I'm really feeling sad today. Oh, well, at least you live on the Northern Beaches. It's a great place to be. You know, it's like, that doesn't help me. You know, that really doesn't help me. So, yeah, so the people that we train will learn the language of talking to people that are in this sort of crisis point in their lives. Mm.
Just so people understand, one of the reasons I'm passionate about a lot of the topics that we're going to be talking about in Conversations for a Better World, including this one, is because, for example, with the suicide, back in 2002, I was contracting to Life Force, which is part of Wesley Mission, and I was travelling around regional New South Wales presenting 3-hour suicide prevention programs to community groups and schools. And it was set up in collaboration with the CWA, the Country Women's Association. And one of the things that was spoken about in these 3-hour presentations is the word psychache. And when you and I met, I said to you, had you heard the term psychache?
No, yeah, that's right.
And you hadn't heard that term, had you?
No.
Because for me, when back in 2002 when I was trained up to do this, because I had been working in mental health, and I went to a suicide prevention seminar as part of, just updating what I was doing. And one of the things that I saw in the presentation, was the high older male suicide rate. I knew there was a high younger male suicide rate, but I didn't know there was an older male one. And for me, the moment I saw that, it's kind of like we've lost that men's business. It's the older men that teach our younger men how to be men, how to just be a man in the world. It's like we've lost that connection. And that's when I went up later to the presenter and said, I want to do this. Mm. And that term psychache, sometimes people will say, oh, how selfish of them to do that. How selfish that they did that and left behind their children. Mm. What would you say to something like that, to that comment?
A person, when they're in that state, is not thinking about anything like that. They're thinking about stopping the pain that they're feeling. Even for me, I think what I wanted to do was go to sleep and never wake up. I wasn't actually thinking of it. I wasn't saying to myself, I want to die. I just didn't want to feel like this anymore. And that's what a lot of people must get to. It's just everything's going on round and round and round and round in your head, and it just traumatises you, like It's just the most awful experience. And it seriously is. It's a pain here, and it's a pain here, and it's just everything's just closing in on you. That's what it's like, and that's that psychache that you talk about. You can't think, you're not thinking about other people. You just want it to stop. That's what you want.
So on that day in July last year, at what point, before you went to the cupboard, and at what point, if there had been, which is what you're doing your best to set up, and we'll be talking about this in a moment, if there was, would you like to say the word?
Moana.
And what does Moana mean?
Well, in legend has it that it means sea princess in one culture, and in another culture it also means shelter. So I'm thinking Moana, shelter from the storm, and we live on the beaches, so that's...
So in what point of that day, if Moana had already been a reality, would you have taken yourself there where you were still able to be aware of what was happening?
Yeah. I may have gone that morning, or I might have even gone before.
Okay.
Because I knew a few days before that I was starting to go down, like I was feeling like I've got to keep myself busy, otherwise, like I'm really not feeling good here.
Yeah.
And I think probably needed to go then. That would have been a good time to go. But on that morning, I think I still could have gone that morning, but I definitely would have gone to something like that. It would have been better if I'd gone a week before, when I'd had the dramas with, COVID starting and all that. And so I quickly did stuff around the house to make me feel like I was being busy and all that. But once I ran out of that to do, it was like, and the four walls are closing in, because, it was really strict, that COVID that we had too. You couldn't go and do anything. So, it was like the four walls closing in on you. So it would have been good to have somewhere, because it was very lonely. It was a really lonely time. Probably the loneliest time I've ever had in my life. My heart goes out to people that live on their own now after going through that.
So let's go on right back and let's talk about culture. Because what's your background?
My dad's Greek Cypriot and my mother's a New Zealander.
Okay. So what part do you feel culture has played for you, maybe growing up, where some of the emotional, I don't want to use the word trauma, what would it be? Emotional what?
I guess it is a sort of trauma, not that you realise it at the time, but, well, because I had two different worlds, and I was at North Sydney Girls High School, a very white Australian high school, and in those days, I was not white Australian, even though I look white Australian, but in those days, it was really, really white Australian. There was two Asian girls in the school. One of them was the daughter of the guy who owned the Chinese restaurant, and the other girl, I'm not sure, she wasn't in my year, but I was Greek, so I was Mel Kypri the Wog. And I tried to go along with that and laugh about it and call myself that too, but I hated it. And sort of felt that you didn't fit into that world at school, that Australian's world. But then on the Greek side, because my mother wasn't Greek and they didn't all talk Greek at home and everything, I felt like I didn't fit into the Greek side. So it was hard. And teenage years, you just want to be like everyone else. And I wasn't. So I guess that's probably set me up a bit, from the word go, really.
So what ages are we talking about here? Between what ages?
13 and 18. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Through school years, yeah. It wasn't in primary school, I didn't notice. It was in high school. All girls school. Yeah.
Can you tell us, or can you recall, what was going on for you emotionally and mentally? Like, what were you thinking about yourself because of other people's judgment?
Well, you feel like you're not worthy. You feel like there's something wrong with you. Like, I felt like I always had to try and please. I was trying to, win my friends almost, like just trying to, I guess I never felt good enough. So, also my father, being Greek Cypriot, he wouldn't let me go out at night. Now all the white Australian girls, they still had a lot more freedom than what I did. So I couldn't go out and hang out with them on the weekends and all that either. So you do feel like you're pretty isolated. Yeah.
So what age would you have left home?
I left home at 17
Why so young given the culture?
because I left home at 17 because I couldn't handle it. And my brother and sister did the same thing. I mean, I love my parents, but I couldn't handle that lifestyle. They would have had me married off to a Greek, you know, and I don't know that that's bad, but
Yeah,
you know.
no, we understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So I spent my life trying to make Dad happy too,
Yeah.
because I disappointed him.
Yeah.
So
Wow. So have you always lived on the northern beaches?
no, when I was 17, I went to Gerringong for a 2-week holiday and stayed there for quite a few years. Had a baby. Got married, had a baby, and then came back to Sydney and lived in King's Cross. Grew up. I was a child in King's Cross. My parents, you know, the Greeks had a sandwich shop, cafe and deli in King's Cross.
So what years were that?
They bought it when I was 6 months old, so 1961. They had it for 40 years.
Wow.
So see, my dad, he arrived in Australia in 1950, so everything was pretty, you know, people weren't, you know, drugs wasn't a big problem and all that sort of stuff. He opens up a business in 1961 in King's Cross, in William Street, heading up into the Cross, and the drugs took a hold of King's Cross, big time. And you had the prostitutes, you know, the drugs really came in.
What year was that, do you reckon?
Would have been late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
That the heroin was pretty bad in the Cross in those days, which is right when I'm a teenager, I was 13. In 73, I was in high school. So Dad was seeing this very seedy side of Australian lifestyle and thought, I don't want my child to be mixed up in that, because he was probably seeing the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
You know, King's Cross was pretty bad then.
And so he's protective of you. Basically, you rebelled and left home.
Yeah.
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 If you look back now, apart from your teenage years in school, when would you see, looking back, where everything started unravelling to lead up to that moment in July last year? Like, how far?
Look, I think I've had mental health issues like depression on and off. I mean, a lot of people do. It's not something that goes away, and that's why you don't feel like you want to talk to your friends and family, because it's like a roll of the eyes as if here we go again. You know, that's why it's hard. But, when I was 18, I was in a hospital for 3 weeks with mental health issues, with depression. So, and that was the first time and last time for many years, and I didn't stay on any medication then, but it wasn't until I went into South Pacific Hospital that I learnt that I never knew what my feelings were. You know, people of my generation, our parents swept everything under the carpet. They were busy working. They didn't have time. There was no such thing as counsellors and psychologists and all that. They didn't have time to sit down and talk through things. It was just, let's just get on with it. You know, can't do much about that. Mum lost a child, you know, she was 3 months old, my sister, and she died of a cot death. Well, they had half a day off from the shop. Because in those days, it was a different time in Australia. And, you know, that was how life was. So I actually didn't know what I actually felt about anything. So it wasn't until I was in this place that I started to learn, and I discovered that the feeling I felt about my children not being with was shame. And I didn't know that. So here I was, 61 years of age, and I didn't know what my feelings were.
And I would dare say that would be probably common for everybody that is following that same aspect of ending up attempting to take their life.
Possibly, because they don't know how to...
understanding.
No, they're not understanding what's going on inside, yeah.
You said that at 18 you went in for 3 weeks to...
private hospital in Fuller's Road at Chatswood. Can't remember what it was called.
So what triggered that at 18?
Oh, I went off the deep end with my mother, like I was screaming and carrying on, and I was taken there.
Okay. So this has been something that's been the layers again. We
Yeah.
talk about the layers of trauma.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that 18-year-old now?
What would
Given
I
the
say?
journey you now know, what's happened, what would you say to that 18-year-old now? If you could sit with her and have this conversation.
Well, it'd be a lot to do with, I want to listen first of all and just really hear what she's got to say, because no one ever did that. No one ever really actually gave me time to say how I really felt about anything. And give them space to learn more about themselves and understand their feelings. And I think it's a really important thing for all of us to be able to express how we really feel about anything.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's not something that's been common up until the last 20 odd years.
Yeah.
When you and I met up a couple of times and had our chats, I asked you, is there a part of you now that it's not that you're glad you attempted to take your life?
No.
But what's the end result now that's a positive for you because of that?
Well, it's driving me to do this safe space.
Yeah.
It's shown me that the system is broken. That the only system we have at the moment, if you're feeling really bad, is to end up in ED, and it doesn't work. All they're doing is caretaking and keeping you safe, but it's not actually helping your mind at all. So, I think I got all that out of it, and so I'm glad to have learnt this. I'm glad that I can now do something with it. So help other people and get them, keep people safe.
So I'll pick this up because I dropped it.
Oh, sorry.
How different is Moana to what's already out there? I mean, there's Lifeline, there's
all right. Well,
Beyond Blue.
Moana is going to be a space that's
Yep.
there that you can just walk into.
Yep.
It's not a space that you've got to ring up and make an appointment and all that. A space you can walk into. Someone will greet you with a smile. There'll be absolutely no judgment. It's no wrong door policy. Sit down with you, have a cup of tea, listen to what you've got to say, take as long as you like. There's no time restraints. There won't be people rushing all around you and carrying on. And we will have referrals to different organisations locally that we know at the moment are actually working. We're not going to send them away with the referral for them to go home and make a phone call and find out it's 6 months wait for something. We want to know that the referrals we're giving, they can come to us as many times as they want.
Yeah.
They can come to us every afternoon, every day, after work, whatever, after school, whatever. They can come to us and talk to us if it helps them to clear their mind and get through the next day. It's all about just it's one foot in front of the other, just keeping you going until you can get that help that you need.
Yeah. And one of the other things that Mel and I were talking about, we had wondered if there's been any studies done, because they've done their best to get a space with the council, and doesn't appear to be possible. And yet one would wonder, with the amount of suicides that happen, with the attempted suicides that happen, with the collateral damage, with rescue services, ambulance, police, the ongoing effect of people who know people who have suicided. If we put that into a dollar figure, compared to council giving a space and council funding it, and I'm not bagging out council here,
No.
I'm honestly not.
No.
This is not what this is about. But surely if we looked at it in pure black and white dollars and cents, it's got to be so much cheaper to have a space in every single suburb compared to what it costs, not just dollars and cents, but the human tragedy and pain and the services. It's one of those no-brainers. I don't quite get it.
You can't fix potholes, Robert. You think that, I mean, roads, you really think that the council is going government. They don't give a shit.
Well, Conversations for a Better World isn't about to go down that path.
No, but
You know me well enough.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually doing a blame thing here. I'm just saying, wouldn't it be interesting if there was research of what it costs us at the moment
I think there
compared
must be something out there that they've done, because the government is going to give Roses in the Ocean, who are the people that have co-designed the safe space with us, $20,000 for each of these safe spaces that they've been asked now by the government to do 20 of them in New South. Is it just New South Wales? Yeah, just in New South Wales. We're one of 5 pilot program, but because of the research they've done and discovered that people really do want people with lived experience to be talking to them, they've decided, right, well, safe space might be a way to go. Let's give it a try. $20,000 each year for the next 3 years. Look, it's a small amount as far as what you need to run a place, but it means that they're listening.
Yeah.
It means that they're taking note.
or council.
It's state, not council at all. It's state, and it means that they're listening and taking it seriously. So that's a really good sign. I think it's a fabulous sign. And I feel that once we get ourselves doors opened, however that looks, that when people see it working, we will get people that want to give us money.
Yeah.
We will get people that are happy to contribute to our barbecue nights and our soup kitchens and our, all the different things, and the volunteer training, etc. And the big pharmaceutical companies around the area too are much more likely to put their hand in their pocket when they can see something up and running. Because at the moment it sounds like it's all pie in the sky, even though, believe me, it's not. We've put a lot of time into it and we're ready to go. The moment someone gives us a space, we can start operating. We've got enough people who've got enough training to start operating. It might only be 1 or 2 nights a week, but it's a start. Anything's a start. So we've got 30 people that are going to start being trained in this next week, so then we'd be able to open really probably 4 or 5 nights a week if we wanted to. And that'll just build.
And once you've got the space, obviously that is going to accelerate.
It will.
Because all of a sudden it's a reality.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it can be advertised. And, Aileen came up with the idea of us putting it on the cinema screens, Once we've got our space, they can show it and get people, seeing that. So,
Before the movie.
yeah.
I'll get my name Royce to sponsor you.
Yep.
What's his name, Morgan? The guy that does it.
Val Morgan,
Mel Morgan. Some
advertising.
charity stuff. We've used him before, and he'll give us a couple of minutes just to flash
Yeah.
on the screen.
So we either need a philanthropist of some sort that can give us, I think the first year is the hardest. I plan to hold yearly, charity ball for this safe space. You can make 70, 100,000 out of one of those if you do it properly, and that will probably be enough to keep us running once we've got this initial setup done. This year I think we need really, if we would have to pay for everything and didn't get anything for free, we'd probably need about 150,000, including rent and everything, to get us going. But if the council gave us a space, or someone gave us a space,
So they've given you money but not a space.
no, the council hasn't given us anything. No, and we haven't even got that 20,000's coming from the state government. It's from public health, and it's going to Roses and will be handed out after the 1st of July each year, 20,000. So
We'll open up to the audience in a moment because we can't hear your voice. But just before we do, one of the things that I wanted to just talk about, because with when I was travelling around with Life Force, this was the handout that they gave to people. And I know you and I spoke about the SALT strategy, S-A-L-T. So if anybody's watching this and they go, well, yeah, that's great, but guess what? I've got a friend that they're talking about suicide, or they're showing the signs of suicide. I don't know what to do. And one of the things that they speak about with the SALT strategy, S-A-L-T, the S stands for see the signs. See the signs of this person that is contemplating suicide. And the A stands for ask them. Actually say, are you thinking of doing self-harm? Because what they've been talking about in all the research, that person actually wants you to ask them. They're so terrified to share the pain the emotional pain that they're feeling and thinking, that they just keep shutting down and they stay silent. But when you see the signs and you ask that question, are you thinking of self-harming? Then all of a sudden that person goes, oh my God, and they can start to open up. The L stands for listen. Because you've seen the signs, you've asked the question, they've gone, yes. And when you listen, you keep listening, and you keep listening, and you keep listening until they're done for that moment. And the T is to take them somewhere safe. Take them somewhere safe where they can start to get the help they need. Never, ever, 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 though, promise that you will keep the secret of what they shared with you. Never, ever, ever promise that, because that can happen, and then you end up becoming part of that silent epidemic. Does that make sense? But it's a SALT strategy. See the signs, ask the question, listen. Listen while, it's what you said, cup of tea to someone that will listen and be so non-judgmental, and then take them to a safe place.
Active listening, yeah.
Active listening.
And that's the safe place you could take
This
them to.
is the safe place. So this is what we want to get out there, people.